Hey everybody, so we are back with Welcome to Derry Season 1 Episode 3 review. This episode really gives us a lot of backstory, a lot of foresight to get an understanding of what we're looking for and really start to uncover what it is that everyone's gift, not everyone, but certain people's gifts are and how they are adding to the story, especially when it pertains to Dick Hallorann, which is the other black major. Is he a major? Yeah, because Leroy, I forgot his name in the last one, but Leroy, who was Will's daddy, he's a pilot. So I believe is he Major Hanlon? He might be Major Hanlon, but I can't remember if Dick is a major as well. But we start off with Lilly. You know, Lilly got sent back to Juniper Hill. They put her back up in the Looney house. And so we see her because she had that episode in the grocery store. So we see her being discharged to her mama. I don't know if it's just me, but Lily's mama really act like she got other shit to do. Like she really just act like Lilly, girl, like you getting on my nerves. And it's like, girl, you don't have no more other kids to raise. You only raising Lilly. It's like she mad that her husband died and left her alone here to raise a child, which would make sense because it's 1962. So women, yes, did not have any, I won't say any rights, but nowhere near as the rights that we currently have or still have. But all the ones that we had obtained, I'll say that. Yeah, because before the 70s, 80s, all of that, you couldn't get no account by yourself. So yeah, Lily's mama was stressed, but it was like it's almost as if she wants her daughter to just hurry up and finish grieving. But it also seems as if Lily isn't getting any support to help her during her grieving. It's almost like y'all know this child suffered something tremendous with her daddy's death. Not only was it such a horrific death, she feels responsible, and it's like nobody's even like. And someone's like, "Girl, your daddy died. Get over it." I mean, she don't have no other siblings, so she just seems to be alone a lot of the times. But with Lily, she is getting discharged, and we learn that she has a close relationship with the head housekeeper, and she's telling her about everything that what her and Ronnie. And the housekeeper is like the only person who's really there to kind of like assure Lily, let her know that people sometimes people only believe what they can see, with the naked eye. And she was like, if this is your friend, do whatever you can to help her. But something about this woman seems a little off. I don't know if she like wanting Lily to feel like she can trust her and then like flip on her, or maybe she is supposed to be a little of the spirit world, but something about this woman just doesn't feel not solid, but I would say kind of like nailed down. She feels a little flighty. I'll say that she feels a little flighty. So we transition. I'm a little bit. I told y'all with a lot of these reviews, I'm gonna have to start going off notes, but we get into. I think we at the base. We're at the base. Yeah, I think we're at the base with Leroy and Pauly. They're going on. No, actually, let's go back because this is supposed to be backstory. We go to this fair. It says 1908, and it's just like circus with all these freak shows and how people pretty much were circus freaks back then. Like if they had any deformity or anything that was different from the norm, they were considered some freak of nature. And so we see this young boy with his daddy going through this circus, and he goes into, I guess you can say, one of these like halls of all these people of different deformities. These twin sisters, like their intestines are tied together outside of their bodies. So the little boy keeps going until he gets to like this dark room and he hears something, and we see the light and he gets closer and closer, and it's this man, the skeleton man, who has a missing eye, and he has one eye and he's like really gaunt and emaciated, looking like a skeleton. He's scared, runs out. His daddy like stop being a sissy because he runs into his daddy, and we see like the back, like a back foreshadow of this clown, like stroking a back, like almost as if because we see the little kid look at the clown, so but he doesn't go over there. So we see them get back on the road. They're going up to we see their truck says Maine. They interact, I mean not interact, but it's important because this boy's daddy gives him a slingshot as well as like a gift. But they have to stop because the car apparently is overheating and so they need some water. Look like the daddy gave him 3 pennies. 3 pennies. And he goes up to this stand where they have water and it's I would say he's Native American, or I don't know if we're gonna call them Indians or Native American, but they're out there selling it and they like, bro, it's 5 cents. You gave me like 3 pennies. The fact that water used to cost 5 cents. The fact that they was already bottling it and selling it technically, but 5 cents, and it's probably $3-4 a bottle. But he's like, that's all I got. And the little girl sees that he has a slingshot, and she's like, you got a slingshot? Almost like, well, I'll trade you for that. But she doesn't say that. So we see the boy in the car with his daddy. He like, where that slingshot at? He didn't gave it away. But they just keep going. And we see, Lord, I lost my train of thought. They're on their way to Maine. And so they're en route to do that and everything. So I believe it pans to the young Indian girl in today's time. And we see that she is the owner of the secondhand shop in Derry. And so that's when we learn that when we transition to that scene, when we get to that part, the young boy who was the little white boy then going through the story is Francis. And Francis in today's time is like the sergeant over this whole organization of digging and building. The person that we see Leroy interacting with, that's Francis in real time because we're in 1962, but this backstory takes us to 1908. That's another thing. It's like some of these scenes feel like present time, and then some of them feel like, yes, this is the 60s. So I don't know if that's also to kind of give a warp of kind of this spirit thing, kind of like how time really is circular in a way, especially when they start talking about these cycles of massacres that come. So it really feels as if time is not linear like we're always taught it is. It's just very cyclical, not cyclical, but circular. Like it's just going. It's just cycles. So she is like, "Hey, Francis," because when they were kids, they only got to play together for a summer because Francis' daddy got deployed back to the military. And then we find out from earlier that Francis' daddy was in the military, so that's the man, Francis' daddy. And so he was like, I didn't remember you and stuff like that. And she was like, well, that's the thing about Derry. You be gone for a while, and no matter how hard you try, you will forget stuff. But it's like we both know, the audience knows that they both kind of know something. They both know there's a deeper meaning behind what the other one wants. And they don't kind of like, oh, I'm not going to express my hand. I'm not going to show my hand right now. But we also saw Rose, who was the Native American woman in today's time. We also see them at a town hall with her nephew, Taniel. And they're already talking about, because her nephew, Taniel, is part of this group of like teenagers that's watching all of these dig sites. Because technically they're digging on sacred land. So the Native Americans, they're like, once again, they're intruding on our land. If they're going to do that, they need to pay us, yada, yada, yada. And so she stands up. She's like, we can do a cease and desist. You could tell everybody was like, girl, we ain't got time for that bullshit. How many times we done that before? But she's using this as a ploy to kind of figure out what it is that they really want. And that's when he comes up. Francis comes to her shop because he got the cease and desist, and that's when he was like, oh, now I remember you when I saw your name. So she wants to really find out. She did that to kind of lure them in to figure out what it is, and he gonna stand over there and tell her in the store, are we trying to find the tunnels to get water coming in to the city, knowing damn well that's not what they want. And she's kind of like going under the guise of, well, we just want to make sure that we're getting a fair trade and this community's getting everything that they need. They both kind of like trying to fill each other out. Like, how much, like, I know, like, they both know that they both know about the thing, but they don't want the other one to know that they're both there to figure out what either one of them are going to do about the thing. So, about the kids, we see Ronnie and Lilly. Ronnie and Lilly, I'm happy to see that they are coming together instead of putting these two girls against each other, because they both of them really all that the other one got. So, you know, a lot of kids are not believing in them. So it's these two kids. Wil hangs out with Rich, and I find that it's interesting a little bit that Wil and Rich are kind of like a younger version of Pauly and Leroy. Just the way that they, like, you have a little black boy, then you have like this Italian or kind of like Latin, or maybe not like white boy, and you see their dynamic as children. It kind of mirrors and is parallel to the dynamic between Leroy and Pauly as adults. Pauly kind of has this like fire, like go forth, real macho ego, and Rich has that as well. And Wil is more reserved and trying to figure things out, just like his daddy, Leroy. So, Ronnie and Lilly come together, and they like, girl, I want to help you. She in the bathroom. She was like, maybe we can take pictures of it. And Ronnie like, girl, really, who gonna develop it? She was like, well, we gotta try. So that was when they enlisted Wil, because they know Wil is really good into science. Well, he's really, Wil real into science. And so Ronnie is over there trying to recruit him. And Wil is sweet because he's not quick to tell Ronnie and Lilly that I don't believe y'all, but he's like, or I believe that you believe it. And I was like, that's cute. And it's also good to see that the children seem to be more in tune with one another, and they seem to be more in tune to believe that everything is not the way that it has to be said that it is. So it's like they have more, it's almost like their faith is more stronger to kind of like let go of what you've been told, to kind of allow what possibly could be, and not be so dead set in it. But of course, Wil and Rich kind of a little shaky, like, And Rich claimed that Wil only agreed to it because he's sweet on Ronnie. But we do know that Rich is sweet on Marge. He like Marge. So they end up, I forgot how we got to the scene, but they ended up at the top of their little hangout where they took Rich for the first time. He loved it. And they talking about the thing that comes after them, trying to figure it out, how to, I guess, get pictures of it. Because at this point, Ronnie and Lilly are the only ones who can still be like, yes, this happened. Wil is kind of still on the, like, did it happen? Or did not? Are y'all sure? Rich says to his uncle, is a Babalao, pretty much a Santeria priest. And he was telling him about the spirits, and he was like, we can call on the spirits, especially the spirits of the dead, because a lot of times this is who they would use to scare people if they, have done something wrong. So they in the cemetery. We figure out Rich don't know what the hell he talking about. He's just telling us what he claimed his uncle heard from his cousin, and they figure out that, Rich, you don't know what you're talking about. You got us in this cemetery doing nothing. Like, so they leave because they're frustrated. As they're leaving, that's when the spirits and everything start to come attack them. And it's the spirit of Teddy, Susie. Rich sees his his uncle spirit, his Theo, that's how you say it. And so Rich and Wil are actually seeing this through actually experiencing this for the first time, whereas Ronnie and Lilly are like, we told y'all, but they're trying to get away on the bikes. Like they're leading the getaway out. They taking pictures, snapping. That's another thing. They kept dropping that damn camera. But I was like, how are they able to pick that damn camera back up so quick and still be on their bike like that? Because Ronnie, I think Lilly had got it caught in a tree. Ronnie had dropped it. Rich had picked it up. Then when he went down a slope, he dropped it. And then finally Wil picked it up and went inside this crypt and took a picture. So they able to make it out of the cemetery because the ground is coming up, ripping everything apart. And that's how Wil fell down into like this crypt area. But he was able to get out. And they like, do y'all believe us now? And they're like, yeah, we believe you now. So then they're able to, they done broke into the school. That's another thing. I was like, these kids of the 50s and the 60s, granted, I do believe that something like this would have been possible for them to break into a school because people did not like, this is before the 70s and the 80s. This is before like those big stretches of like serial killers and stuff. People would let their kids just play outside all night long. And it shows up in how Lilly just be out kicking it with the crew, and it's dark outside. Everybody like, where your kids at? Oh, they hanging with their friends. They outside. They outside. They'll come in eventually. But you know, I grew up like that too, especially when the stoplight come on. But they go and they get, with Wil's help, they find out the chemicals that they need to develop these films, and they're seeing these spirits. They even see the one, they see Teddy and Susie in the pictures that they've taken, and then they see the one that Wil took in the crypt, and you see a clown in the back, and they're like, oh, they're like, oh my God. And so for them, they're like, okay, we're gonna show these pictures, and then people are gonna believe us. We're gonna transition. It's not happening around the same time, but going back to Leroy and Rich, they are on an airplane with Dick Hallorann. And so we learn why Dick Hallorann has these special privileges, and it's because he's psychic. He is psychic. And their plan is to use like Dick's psychism? Is that ain't no damn word. Dick being able to be a psychic with like the I want to say the fearless skill of Leroy. I think they're trying to bring them together to help them figure everything out. And so Francis is like, Dick needs to go on this flight with y'all. He's going to help y'all figure out. He's going to be your human compass. And he gives him this container that is for cigars. But we find out there's the slingshot in there. And as they're getting up there, Dick opens the box and he's touching the slingshot. And he kind of like goes into this trance where he's not there physically, but he's in his mind. Like he on his That's So Raven shit. But much deeper. So he having his vision. There we go. He having his vision. Leroy and what's his name? Is it Rudy? Why I can't remember his little friend's name right now. They're like, what the hell going on with him? Like, come on, bro. So in Dick's mind, he goes through like this tank. Because mind you, they're in the plane. He goes through this tank. And we see little things around him, and then we see him like walking through this muddy water, and we see the Pennywise sign come up, and someone coming out saying, "Who are you?" Then we see this woman that's like suspended, almost looks like she's floating in water, come down, and she's like, "Dickie, he's coming," and he's like, "Grandma," and she's like, "He's coming. You got to get out of here." So we see him, I might be missing something, but we see him turn around and try to open whatever is this like steel tank door, but he's really trying to open something, the ceiling of the damn pot of the damn plane, the little airplane they on. Leroy and Pauly, that's it. Leroy and Pauly, like, what the hell? What's wrong with this? What's wrong with this man? What's wrong with this man? Like, what is wrong with him? And he's having his episode and he's coming back and getting whatever information that he can from that, because he's using this slingshot to direct them to the sky, through the sky, where he's feeling this energy the most, the energy from this thing. And that's another thing. The slingshot is important because when we go back to when Francis and Rose were kids, they were playing in the field and Francis ran into the woods and Rose was like, don't do that. And so when he's in the woods, it's this thing that looks just like the skeleton man that he just saw, that he was scared of at the circus. And it starts to follow him and chase him. And that plays on to what they say, this thing becomes your fears. And the last thing that he was running from was that skeleton man. So the thing is showing up as a skeleton man, chasing him out, like trying to kill him. And Rose is from outside the perimeter of the woods, and she uses the slingshot to hit the skeleton man monster in the eye. And that gives Francis time to run out with Rose. And so they make it out. Francis is like, we got to keep going. And Rose is like, no, we're good. Once we reach this part outside of the woods, we're good. It cannot come out of the woods. And he's like, huh? And she's like, can you keep a secret? And we haven't really figured out what the secret is. But Dick Hallorann is there to get us through the sky, where we feel this kind of like seismic energy, seismic activity. I know I'm all over the place, y'all. Seismic activity, and kind of figure out where it is and what that means. And also the car that was discovered in last week's episode, episode 2, is important because that was a car that was involved in a massacre that happened 27 years earlier in 1935, when it was like the Dillinger something. And they were saying how like some people had gone about town and there was people in this car, like some rebels or whatever, and it was shot up and everything. But they also are talking about how at that time it was sightings of this thing again, that was having things happen in Derry like it is now in 1935, which would make sense because we find out later on that this thing shows up in cycles of 27 years. So it makes sense that it showed up in 1908 with Francis, which is 27 years before 1935, when it showed up in the massacre, which is now 27 years before 1962, that is showing up now with the people in Derry. So, and then we also, another thing that we see with Dick and Leroy, we see that Leroy is really interested in Dick now. Not like in an overt way, but kind of like, what is up with him? Like, why are they calling him the human compass? We had him up in the plane and he was starting to, in their mind, freak out. And then when he invites Dick over for dinner, it's like Dick is kind of flirting with Charlotte, but almost like trying to be too like chummy. And then he mentions something about Leroy's son. And that's when Leroy picks up on that, like, how did he know that? I've never told him that I have a son. And they talk about that on the porch when he's like, how did you know that? And he told him what his kind of like special gift is. And he was like, where we come from, everybody knows somebody that has that gift. And he was like, but how did you know I had a son? I never told you that. And he was like, stay out of my head. And it's revealed to us that Dick Hallorann was one of the men in the room when Leroy and Pauly got jumped. Because we find out that it was Francis that was behind Leroy getting jumped to like test him. But there was one man off to the side that did not participate. He didn't hit them, but he was in a room. And Leroy was like, it was you. And Dick was like, I wouldn't fuck with you because in that moment, when you look death in the eye, he was like, I've been in people's heads. And when they are facing death, they're thinking about their family, their regrets. And he was like, you were just collecting information and analyzing. He said, fear didn't even show up for you. Like that part of your brain is not even there to fear. And that makes sense because if they are trying to get this thing to come out, they needed it's like they needed to come out because of people's fear, but I think they want to be able to capture it. And that's where they're going to use Leroy to kind of capture it because they need someone who can withstand fear, even fear so strong that it'll kill you in the face of this. And we have seen so far that Leroy shows no fear. And so I'm really anxious to see like how is this going to play out, because everyone else is, even the children, and this show is getting really good. I've watched other episodes and I'll come and do reviews of that, but episode 3, if I've missed anything, just let me know in the comments. If you do enjoy the reviews, also give me a like, let me know, interact. But this is episode 3, season 1 review of Welcome to Derry, and yeah, I'll be back next time. Thank you.